Right, we are live. Right, guys, welcome back to the show. We're just going to dive straight into it. We're on the clock. We've got things to be, places to see, whatever the phrases are. I just got that completely wrong.
Very welcome.
Right, what time is it? We're on the. Just quickly, we're going to talk about the latest news in AI. We've literally just got some. We're going to share with you. We are going to be doing 5 minutes per one, and I can't get my stopwatch to work. I'm trying to do this really quickly, and it's not going to work because I've got the wrong times. So forget all that. I'm just going to try and do it roughly on the timer. Right, okay. Diving straight into it. Will, we've got a weird one here. Okay, you can dive into that one. We're diving into
this one. This is interesting because I like this one. This one is one that's very at the forefront at the moment, which is high costs and thin margins are threatening AI coding startups. This is becoming really prevalent in our line of work because we use a lot of AI coding tools to assist in our workflows like Claude Code and Cursor and Windsurf, which this article speaks about specifically. But what we are noticing, which is what's interesting, is that the costs are going up. There's introductions of bigger plans, more costly plans, and at the same time, they're shrinking and squeezing limits. I think we're right at the beginning of a point in time now where the age of like free, cheap AI is coming to an end. And, you know, a lot of these companies have invested billions and billions of dollars in building this technology and giving it away for free to acquire as many users as possible. And now we're seeing the point where they have to make some money. And it's I think in the beginning, doing this strategy has caused a lot of problems, actually, because the companies are getting so much backlash. Cursor's lost so many customers. Windsurf has lost so many customers. And now Claude Code by Anthropic, a model provider, is getting a lot of flack for doing the same thing. So maybe this strategy to acquire as many customers at a low cost as possible, I don't know if maybe that wasn't the right decision. I don't know what you think about this kind of strategy to onboard people, Ben.
It's really interesting. When you look back in like early Facebook days, Zuckerberg held off monetizing, as long as possible. His game, I mean, to a certain extent, he didn't really know what the product was when he started building it. He didn't really know what the use case was, and it's not how you build, tech products these days. You find the problem and see, what's the pain point, and and you try and sort of solve that problem and make sure there's a viable market for it. But what's interesting is, back in the day, it was all about free, just on board, and we'll figure it out later. And that was for years. Yeah. And they didn't monetize for a long time. So they're looking to monetize very rapidly in the traditional sense. But I think that's the way a lot of startups are going, particularly when they're being funded, when there are investors behind it. It definitely appears as though there's more of an appetite from, I guess that's where the pressure is. The pressure is coming from the investors. They want a return on their money. If a startup can actually move forward and power growth without that investor pressure, then they're able to hold off longer, which ultimately means they can probably grow a lot faster. Of course, at some point they're going to have to monetize. Like all businesses, every business has to wash its own face as a minimum. So I don't know really. I think it's just an inevitability, and I think consumers can't expect everything for free. And why should they?
There is a massive element of entitlement, but I guess people were sold a product at $20, for example, and I think they expect the price to stay the same, when they're sold that. And less than a year later, they're being told they have to pay 3 times that for the same amount of credits that they had before. Again, the limits are is a very big lack of transparency from companies. And that has caused it. I understand the disgruntlement. I mean, it's caused my own disgruntlement because we have to spend more on the same limits that we had less than a year ago for a fraction of the price. But I also understand the business sentiment that, of course, you need to make money. An AI company literally cannot bootstrap it. You need investment. You need capital to come from somewhere because it literally costs, millions and millions, if not billions of dollars to train these models. And you need that cash. So, I understand that we need to basically this starts at the model provider level. Companies like OpenAI and Anthropic are having to, tighten up and strap down and start to turn a profit or work out their profitability, which causes contagion. elsewhere, upstream to AI coding products like Cursor and Windsor. I think that's 5 minutes.
Yeah, let's move on. One last quick thought on that. Ultimately, I think the reality is from a financial perspective, there'll be, the users of these products will be moaning, they'll be groaning, but they'll pay.
I think so, yeah.
And ultimately, what you're going to get a few people drop off. The grand scheme of it, people will pay if they're using it, and that's just the nature of it, isn't it? You sort of build that sort of those new processes, new efficiencies into your business when you're using these products. You're not going to go back, are you?
No, I don't think so. Or again, there's no choice. You have to, it's either you have to get with the program, the costs are going up, you either get with the program or find something else. It does play into smaller models, which we'll talk about in the future, which I think is an alternative path that we're taking. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But before we get there, shall we talk about this really weird article I found? Let me just put it up on the screen. I know absolutely nothing about it, but I just thought it would be interesting to talk about.
No, I agree, and it's like we do a lot of these videos we do are just we're reacting as we're sharing it with the audience. Yeah. So the next parenting trend starts before conception.
So I'll give you a little rundown of what this is.
Fiction.
I'll give you a little rundown of what this is. Again, I know absolutely nothing behind the technology. I know you're going to know nothing about the technology, but I want your opinion based on what this is. So this is a parenting trend where you can go to this company, I believe it's called Orchid, and you can give them as little as $2,500, and you can be involved in the process of choosing, what you're like. They basically genetically test embryos before pregnancy, and then parents can basically choose their future baby from these tests. And this whole business is bringing up obviously an awful lot of scientific, moral, ethical questions about should we design healthy babies, quote unquote, separate to what the normal way of creating a baby. This is really weird. And what's your thoughts, Ben?
You know what? Again, just as just reacting live here. I don't feel comfortable, but
strange,
I think I would need to listen to the opposite side of the argument to be able to just take it all in, to sort of listen to the guys who are doing this. Why are they doing it? What's the benefits? How do they see things playing out? What are they actually engineering? Are they actually engineering intelligence, or is it disease? What is it? I've got a cousin who's got cystic fibrosis, for example. So if they could engineer that away, that would be incredible.
Is that a good thing?
But
I guess the ethical dilemma there is
blue eyes, brown eyes, blonde hair, dark hair, 6 foot, 5 foot. I don't know if I'm as comfortable with those sort of things, because what you sort of trying to do is create the perfect human, and who's dictating who the perfect human is. I don't know. It's I think these types of things, my initial reaction is, I don't feel comfortable with this. We should just let nature take its course. But when it comes to disease, I think that's a different angle. But again, I'd like to hear other angles first. I'm just giving you my initial.
So this is what's interesting, and something. This is what's interesting, and something probably to look up further is this article on the on the screen here. This is a 132-minute transcript. You're obviously only seeing the title here, but if you scroll down on it, it's a long interview with the CEO, and going through a lot of these questions, because it does raise so many ethical questions. And I think this will be something really interesting to look into. Again, my initial thought is it's quite uncomfortable as well. I don't know about the feeling of playing God, And again, you mentioned your relative that has like cystic fibrosis. I mean, the ultimate goal, I guess, from this kind of business is that you can avoid having a child that has cystic fibrosis. But then you have so many ethical questions.
You can sort of do that now. You can have like a test to see if you are carrying this gene or whatever it is, and your other partner's having this gene, and if you both are carrying it, there's a higher risk. So you can do that now. Like,
I think there's going to be a huge ethical problem with like people that are pro-life. And obviously we won't go into politics of whether you're pro-life, pro-choice, but the whole pro-life thing is that life begins at conception, and if you're testing embryos, basically if that embryo is not what you want, what do you do with that embryo? If you're hard on the pro-life stance, that's mass murder in that kind of viewpoint. So there's lots of ethical questions. I don't know how I feel about it.
No,
really
you
weird.
See these sort of crazy sort of sci-fi movies that sort of show like couples going into these sort of like fancy places and designing their perfect child, and I mean, is that a future we want? I'm not sure. So let's move on. We've covered that. Again, if anyone wants to check out the article, you've seen it where it is. Go and have a
you've heard our hot take, which is having not read anything other than the first headline.
We are very
well
informed. Right, next one. Move on quick. We've been 5 minutes. So we've done that one.
This one's hidden behind a paywall. Well, the next two are hidden behind a paywall, but we'll talk about smaller AI now, if that's okay.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that because that will hopefully mean things are cheaper and easier and quicker and on device and all those sort of cool things. So we'll see.
So this is all we can see without paying, but I have a summary of what it's about. And I don't think this is particularly groundbreaking news beyond South Korea entering the global AI race. That this hasn't happened before. It's very traditionally America and China really coming in. France has played a little bit of a role with some of their companies there, but it's mostly been America and China. So South Korea has entered the stage and basically brought out a tiny model, a very small model.
Just to clarify, it's a startup out of South Korea called Upstage.
That's the one.
So they've launched Solar Pro 2, which is recognized as a frontier model, despite having just 30 billion parameters.
Which is very small. That's enough to run on consumer hardware. I mean, it's going to be good consumer, quite high-end consumer hardware, but it is small enough to run on consumer hardware. And again, this has just come out. The real tests are actually using it in the real world, but they tout benchmarks where it's beating some of the other frontier models. We have like Claude from Anthropic and GPT-4.1 from OpenAI. Whether that is the case remains to be seen. Again, it will be judged in the real world. But I think this is the answer. When we were talking about how these AI labs, these frontier labs are now starting to like strap down and try to turn a profit. This is the alternative pathway. You said that consumers either have to like it or lump it. I actually strongly believe that this is a very viable pathway that will bring AI and make it accessible for everybody. I think there's only a matter of time before we're running these models and they're suitable for the vast majority of tasks that you would need them for.
I agree. You know what? I think for consumers, it's going to be driven by, is it good enough for me to notice or do what I wanted to do in everyday sort of applications, and is it cheap enough? Yes. So I think it doesn't necessarily have to be the biggest, the best, because for most people, they're probably not going to be using half of the capacity. So I think that will be the key.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is the alternative pathway. It's a pathway I really believe in. My personal opinion is I don't like what OpenAI, Anthropic, Google. I don't like what a lot of the labs have done. It isn't very transparent. I don't believe that they should have sold it super cheaply to acquire users and then suddenly all of a sudden out of the blue changed the game. I understand what's happening and why, but I don't think it's been very fair and transparent on users. And I think this is an alternative pathway that we should all be taking.
And to provide some context, for those users who aren't using these tools, what are we talking about in terms of costs? How has it played out?
Well, so again, a lot of the tools that you can use. I'll talk from the coding world. So something like Cursor, for example, they released their AI powered IDE. They released it for $20 a month, free as well. You could use it for free on a free plan, and then you got $20, and that got you 500 requests a month, which was more than enough. That's 500 messages, and then you'd pay a little bit extra if you went above and beyond that. Then what they did is they still charging $20 is they moved it to a different type of pricing. They changed the goalposts where they told you got unlimited uses, but you actually didn't. There were limits, so that wasn't very transparent. And now they've dumbed it right down to you only get about $20 of API credits, which is not very much. So you went from being able to pay $20 for an entire month to only getting $20, which you could run out with in the coding world within a few days of use. And then all of a sudden they release a $60 plan, which is the old pro plan. So what you were paying $20 before, the $60 plan is much more along the lines of what you had for $20. And they've also released a $200 plan as well. So again, it's a forever changing goalpost, but this is happening upstream too with Anthropic, with OpenAI. Again, Claude Code is a very popular, coding tool. It runs in your terminal, and they're doing the same. The limits have shrunk. There's been accusations that they have, like, quote unquote, nerfed their model, not made it as good, all in pursuit of making it profitable. But it's how they've gone about changing the goalpost without really informing users and just doing it, hoping that people wouldn't notice or complain, really.
You know what? This just screams to me, again, another problem with centralization. If you get suckered into an ecosystem and it's being controlled by people you don't know, and you are literally at the whims of their choices, and that's where it just screams to me about the importance of decentralization, both in terms of AI and in terms of money, talking about Bitcoin, and as soon as you're dealing with centralized entities,
I believe in
or whatever. But that's why I think a decentralized future in whatever form you're talking about is so important.
I do believe that I do believe in centralization to a degree. I also believe that some certain technologies should be open to everybody, and AI being one of those, and to gatekeep and lock out people from what is possibly the most game-changing, world-changing, society-changing piece of technology of all time. I think that feels really unfair, and that's why I really want AI to be accessible and given to all. There shouldn't be massive limits on it. So when I hear about there's all these works to shrink the models, make them run on devices, give them for free, open source them, I believe it's one of those technologies that we owe the world, not to who has the most money.
Yeah, no, that's great. Right, move on. We're pushing up against our time.
I was going to say, this is going to have to be a super quick one, because it's my fault that we're rushing, because I have to go.
That's all good. That's all good. Right, final headline: DeepSeek's know-how fuels an AI chatbot for the Muslim world.
Now, I'll put the article up. Again, it's paywalled, and I think this is one where you should lead the charge on this one.
Yeah. So Malaysia's firm Zetrix has basically introduced an AI chatbot tailored to Muslim users by building an open source foundations from China's DeepSeek. So this marks one of the latest culturally specific AI applications entering the market. And I think the point being is, and we've said this, is AI is going to get super personal, super personalized. So whether you want an AI that's culturally specific for your religion, AI that's specific for your interests, your hobby, your skill, your expertise, and also not just one AI, because today I might wake up and I might want to use Ava Mind and have that therapeutic experience. But later in the day, I might feel super good, super charged. I want to go for a run. I want my AI to tell me, hey, give me some motivation, or give me a training course because I want to do some runs, or whatever it is. So I think that personalization is going to be where the future
I think
goes.
It definitely feels like that's what speaks to you most. It's not necessarily about the use case of the personalization in this case, being more angled towards the Muslims and things like that. However, I think it much more speaks to how we can use AI to really narrow into niches that are more useful to some people than others, and how we can create these personalized experiences instead of these general purpose across the board, good at everything, but masters of none sort of niches as well.
So what we're seeing now is, like you said, that general purpose, big models, they're coming. Now we've got products like Ava Mind, which is our product, which is therapeutic based. That's that. There'll be other models that do this, business coach. There'll be other models that sports coach. But I think the next trajectory is going to be,
I agree.
For example, Ava Mind. There's my therapist. I'm just going to switch my Ava Mind to be my comedian, tell me some jokes. I'm going to switch my Ava Mind to be whatever, and I think that's where,
this is
we're
also
all different. We're all humans, and our moods and our change throughout the day. So why shouldn't the technology sort of fit that?
So this speaks to actually advancements in this world anyway. For this whole thing, there's an architecture for AI models called mixture of experts. The idea is that you don't need to have a massive model that can do everything. You can activate only a few of the parameters and get really good results in that domain. So if you're asking it a coding problem, you'll activate the neurons of the neural network that are the experts in coding. It will activate those parameters. If it's about mathematics or about creative writing, there'll be different experts built in. And what this does is it allows models to have smaller footprints, be more efficient, because we don't need to have these massive, you don't have to have these massive, many billion, trillion parameter models. You can actually have much smaller ones that do one job really well, and then others that do other jobs really well. So so it's another fascinating field of study.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Let's wrap it up, guys. We've got to shoot. We're going to love you and leave you guys, and we'll catch you up tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.